The main challenge was that at that time, as you know, the internet started blossoming. We needed to provide more in-depth, both technical and managerial type of training, but the cost obviously was kind of high, and the chapter finances was not in bad shape, but at that time really didn't have enough money to be able to go, to really have those. So what we did was embark on more emphasis on special seminars where we can generate a little more revenue, but also targeting the entire audit community and as well as the cybersecurity community. So we expanded that, and then that helped us generate more revenue, that we became better financially at my term. I think then we will move forward and be able to do so. Along with that, the other challenge was that we wanted to provide more, like, quote unquote free webinar trainings, but at that time it was too cost prohibitive. But we started the conversation on that, and we were trying to encourage the national chapter to have more events like that. And then later on they did do that, but it took several years after my tenure to get that started. But we did start that conversation and that initiative. I said you could do the special seminars that we really emphasize that, and I think Jim, you well know that we engage you on some of those later on. Of course, because I was some special seminar for a number of years after that. But that's when we really started to emphasize the special seminars, because we want to provide more in-depth, more technically focused training so that people can understand better how the operating system, how the database, and how these, particularly the ERP at that time, which was very popular, being installed, in particular in the federal government, to figure out how to look at the security controls over that, and that's where I think that, at least I felt that I left a very good mark on that. But it was not just me. Obviously, there were others involved in the chapter who helped to move that initiative along. I think that actually that was I want to use a word that's probably a little maybe some people may just not agree, but I always think it was revolutionary during my time, particularly because at that time the networking started really blossoming. Just about everybody trying to connect apps and to the internet. But the internet, as you know, at that time it was developed, but it wasn't like today. The bandwidth was still limited, etc. But there was a big effort to get everything as much as they can on the internet and provide that availability to people, so to users. And the users of the community has increased tremendously, which means that you're going to have to secure a whole lot of paths, in the network side. In particular, internet doesn't have any built-in security itself, so we embarked on we knew that, and we tried to make sure that we have training aligned with the technology involvement, which was at that time tremendously fast and we had to adapt our training to that particular purpose. But it took some time though for us to do that, because that, for one thing, I told you about our limitation on funding, but the other one is to find the right source, and I'm glad that we found people like you and like others, that were able to provide us cost-effective training and provided a good technical foundation, We had some very top-notch volunteers, for the CISA review. I don't recall at that time whether or not ISACA increased its certification, but I think that there was an inkling to do that. But certainly, we tried to encourage the CISA, and I believe the CISM was also at that time started to do so. But we encouraged people to do that. We did a lot of outreach programs. The big thing I remember is that we started that, obviously, everybody realized at the time that we need to engage more than just the audit community. The emphasis now is going to, obviously, to the cybersecurity community, but also management and operations. We started and then in our seminars, it was kind of surprising that our seminars were attended not only just by auditors, but very often by people in operation who usually get findings from auditors, and they want to know how to resolve them, and they understand where the auditors came from. So that was kind of good. That we really thought that not just increase membership for ISACA, but we try to bring membership joining ISACA by non-auditors, people who are involved in cybersecurity practices, but also more involved in operations, Well, we had the monthly chapter meetings that um, we really didn't want to increase the price, but we had to generate revenue. But we also started bringing some more people. See, the challenge there was to bring in people who could provide substantive uh, presentation, but it was for free, So, and very often it was a little bit tough to get, but we were successful because there was a lot of good people. We had a lot of good contacts that we got fairly decent amount of training. Particularly, I want to thank. I think that time GAO provided a lot of good training on the criteria, on the document, on policy and procedure that they use, criteria they use. So that was another thing I want to highlight, that we did change the nature of the monthly chapter meetings to more focused on topics and content rather than a more softer approach, which was managerial in nature before. So that was one thing we emphasized. The other thing I wanted to emphasize was that I think that's the time. That tradition started, but I carried on that tradition, was have a fairly extensive end of the year meeting, where we try to bring as many people as we can, at a very low cost or hardly any cost. We try to also bring some free events, but we did so as much as we could, some financial strength constraints. So, yeah. Sure. I have several thoughts on that. First and foremost, I think that they need to continue to reach out to everybody who's in profession, users, functional users, as well as operational, to show them the importance of ISACA's approach to trying to secure and make sure that the controls over these systems, which now, quite frankly, are part of the infrastructure. It's no matter where you go, the systems is really the driving force. That's everybody now is involved. So therefore, it's important to try to get as much as you can. Obviously, it would be good if they could get more C-suite people involved, but then that's always been a focus, and I think it continues to be a focus of ISACA. The other challenge I would recommend is that they continue to provide, in particular, the new type of technology, as well as the ones that we have. I think that there needs to be an emphasis on coding practices, I think that there's got to be more emphasis on getting the auditors and cybersecurity people practices to understand more about how the coding structure works, and what are the controls, and what are the vulnerabilities associated with it. That's the bottom line, and that's, I think it's I wouldn't say it's lacking, but it's certainly, there's a lot of people out there doing cybersecurity who don't quite understand the underlying basis of all the technical things, in particular now with AI coming on board. So it's going to be really and the third and final thought is to just collaborate with as many people as we can. At one time, I remember when I was president, there was not a competition, but we certainly had some differences with other certification bodies. It's like IC2. They thought that ISACA was trying to cut into them, and ISACA always just thought that, well, we're also concerned about theirs. But I think that all the certification bodies serve a purpose, and I think that they're all can be good and work together, because as well, Jim, there's FITSI and there's no conflict between FITSI and ISACA. There's no conflict between ISACA and IC2, etc. This area is so broad, so big that it's the certifications you have are not going to be against each other. And you don't collaborate. If you collaborate, it's going to, I think, everybody benefit from it, rather than trying to say that this is my turf and that we want to minimize members getting other certifications. I think I would encourage any members who have a certification also try to get IC2, or maybe others that are going to be valuable to your work. You need the certification for your work, not because where it came from. My involvement in ISACA, I didn't know about it until I started working with IG's office back in the 1980s, and then when I got my certification, I started participating, and I realized that, there's a lot of people here that knows a lot of things that I could use not just for the benefit of my career, but also just to help me do my work, you know, and that's important. And I think that's the reason why I think that volunteering for an organization like ISACA is a valuable experience for anyone, you know. In addition, you know, obviously I developed a lot of good contacts after my retirement from federal government. I found a job immediately with IBM, thanks to a real old, unfortunately he's passed on, John Lanehoff, who's one of the fathers of ISACA, you know, in particular the local chapter, you know. So those are kind of the contacts you have that'll help your career, and but also help your professional growth as well, you know. So I think that's real important that people try to get involved in you know, in ISACA if your career so dictates, you know.